Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another ranking video, a franchise ranking. Recently did Alien, the all 6 films ranked. Today, as you can tell from the thumbnail, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. So this whole franchise is a bit of a mixed bag. You've got some really good films, some epic, like I say epic to me, like the original is. You've got some like absolute horror gems. You've got a bit of like ones with humour in there, and then you've got some lesser films, perhaps from the later years of the franchise. But anyway, let me just count how many's actually in this franchise. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. So 8 films in the franchise. The first film was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a horror masterpiece in my opinion, from 1974. Fantastic film, quite lower budget. It was shot in the summertime in Texas. It really captures that isolated country, backwoods, like rural feel of that environment. Very raw film, with it being so low budget, and that you can tell the acting's quite let's say natural, and it's very raw, and it's a powerful film in my opinion because it's so linear as well, and it's straight to the point, straight to the killing, straight to the chainsaw action. Funnily enough, as you're probably aware if you're a fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, there's not that much blood in it. There's some nasty scenes in there, and there's some disturbing stuff too, but there's not like so much blood in it as there is compared to some of the sequels. Anyway, let's get on with the countdown. So this is the franchise ranking. So coming in my opinion, let me just check this. Coming in last is The Next Generation. Really not a big fan of this one. From 1994. I'll just take this out of the slip so you can actually see. This is the Scream Factory edition. It's a really bad film and I don't really like it, but I have to have it as a completionist. I've just got to. It basically has a similar narrative to the original film, but it's a bunch of young people after prom. They get caught up in the woods, and they're tormented by Leatherface and his new gang of let's say like miscreants and stuff. Actually stars Renee Zellweger as well in an earlier role. Matthew McConaughey, who plays one of the Leatherface's family members. Yeah, it's got some sort of like crazy acting scenes. There's a scene where Matthew McConaughey really goes off on one, but overall the narrative's just sort of like a lesser and a bad carbon copy of the original narrative, but like going into some weird areas with like elitists, like men in suits turning up in limousines, and they're linked to the family of cannibals and killers and things like that. Just some weird territory they go into. But Next Generation, pretty bad, badly acted, badly made film really. I'm sure it has its fans. I personally don't care for it, but that's my worst anyway in the franchise. Definitely went for that one. Let's pop that down. Also, I'll have to get the there's 9 films actually. I said 8. There is 9 actually. I made a mistake because there's the Netflix film as well. So we're loose anyway on here. It's just off the top of my head, like we're just doing this spontaneously. I'll squeeze the Netflix one in as well. That won't have a that doesn't have a Blu-ray. I've not got a bootleg either, so we'll have to get to that when we do. Coming in next, from 2013, Texas Chainsaw, also known as Texas Chainsaw 3D. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this one, so I will talk about it for a little bit. Apparently it's a US #1 box office hit. Well, it will be because it's got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre name tied to it. Cast of young actors, basically, yeah, it's Leatherface's cousin, but it's set in 2013. It has flashbacks to the 70s, where it all kicks off between the local townsfolk and the Sawyer family, and a lot of them are killed. Leatherface survives, and his basically this baby is taken away, and that turns out to be Leatherface's cousin. However, she's really young, so it goes back to like the 70s. So, and it's set in 2013, so 79 to 2030. So she'd at least be 40 plus in this film, but she's not. She's really young. So the timeline makes no sense, as it's set 40 years or so in the future from what happens at the beginning of this film. It goes 40 years into the future. There's a time jump, and Leatherface's cousin's all grown up, but she's a really young girl. She's, you know, like a attractive young woman at like 20 or so, but she should be like 40 odd. So that makes no sense whatsoever. She goes to the grandma's house, which she's basically inherited, and there's notes around saying, you know, basically Leatherface is still there, and he's in his chambers locked away. She unleashes him, and he goes after all the group of young people. Yeah, I don't like it. I think it's shot quite well. The aesthetic looks okay, and the house is quite cool and creepy, but overall, don't really like the film. So that's Texas Chainsaw, and the narrative just you know, like the timeline just makes no sense. I'm sure a lot of people have gripes with that. Coming in next in the ranking, so we started. So there's 9 films in the ranking. We've just done 9, 8. Coming in at 7, Leatherface. This is a prequel from 2017. Yeah, this is an I think this is a US edition, because we don't have a UK Blu-ray. We've got DVD release of it. This is a weird one because it toys with the whole idea of who's going to become Leatherface, and it's a little bit surprising. It's about these group of again, young people who are in an institute, in an asylum basically, you know, due to bad mental health and stuff. They've been locked up. They escape when a riot breaks out, and they go on a crazy road trip, and there's a sheriff after them. So the sheriff's after them because he doesn't like the Sawyer family, and a couple of them are Sawyer family members, especially this one young guy. And there's a big sort of like, there's a big hurling, like really kind of like, there's a big like really like kind of like beefy like character who's you think's going to become Leatherface, but actually he doesn't. And yeah, so I did spoil it a bit there, but sorry. But yeah, you think the big guy obviously is going to become Leatherface, but it's actually the smaller guy who does turn out to be Leatherface in the end in bloody fashion. But not too keen on this one, bit weird. Not as bad as like Next Generation or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. This could have been a film on its own without being tied to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre brand or franchise. This could have just been its own thing, like its own horror thriller. It's got a few like disturbing scenes in there, a good bit of violence. Not the worst film in the world, but that's Leatherface anyway. A prequel. So we've done 9, 8, 7. So that's right. Just trying to work this out, guys. 9, 8, 7. Coming in at 6 is another one that I'm not very keen on at all. From 1990, Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I really don't like this one. It does have a very good performance from, let me just check the names. Ken Foree, who's in Dawn of the Dead, and so a lot of Rob Zombie's films, like I believe, which one's he in? I think he might be in Devil's Rejects and some other ones. Yeah, he's also in Lords of Salem, and there's some of his more newer films. But Ken Foree, like a lot of you guys have known him from stuff, especially Dawn of the Dead. Fantastic actor, and he really steals the show. He puts in a good performance. More crazy antics. It's the one before Next Generation, so it's a few years before that. About a brother and sister on the road, and they get caught up in the mayhem with the Sawyer family. There's a whole new like cast of characters and stuff. Viggo Mortensen's in the film as one of the Sawyer family members. He's quite crazy. I do enjoy his performance. So Ken Foree and Viggo do a good job in this film, and they kind of hold the film up and elevate it a little bit. But everything around that, including the violence, isn't that great or interesting. And yeah, it's very dark as well. It's all set at night. I think the beauty of like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre film is they capture like the heat, the hot, like summer's day, like weather. Well, in the 1974 classic, a lot of it's set in the daylight, which works to the film's advantage because it looks all hot and sticky, and You know, they're all saturated in sweat, running around. Obviously, there's nighttime scenes towards the climax of the film, but the beauty of that film is you get a lot of great daylight scenes in the rural Texas countryside. This one's just completely at night, basically, so it's a very dark film as well. That's Leatherface coming in there. So, after that, 9, 8, 9, 6. So we're on to number 5, which is the Netflix film, the new one from 2022, I think. I'll throw it up on the screen in the corner, the poster for it. So now we're on to I keep forgetting. We're on to number 5, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So they've dropped the. It's just Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's set a lot of years after the original. It's a requel, so they've forgotten a lot of the sequels in the canon, and they've gone straight to telling a direct sequel years later to the original 1974 film. Group of again, like young people and influencers turned up at this town that they're trying to renovate, and obviously Leatherface is there lurking as an older man, and he gets let's just say some things happen, some nasty things happen to one of his relatives, and that gets the wheels in motion for him going on an absolutely ferocious killing spree. So he basically gets tipped over the edge, he flips, takes out the police, he's got the police still after him, and he goes on a crazy barrage of violence that he inflicts upon to the influencers. There's a really funny scene on the bus as well, like where he turns up and they're all partying on the bus and they hold their phones up to him and they basically say, you know, you're going to get cancelled, and he just goes crazy and gets the chainsaw out, and it's really brutal and gory. Not too keen on the narrative of this film with the whole Leatherface versus the influencers and stuff. Didn't find that too interesting. The cast's alright, the acting's okay. Leatherface is kind of a cool depiction of him in it as an older man. He's got like a very scary face mask, but I didn't like the narrative too much. But anyway, what I'm going to get to, what I do like, is the violence. The violence is pretty damn good. It's gory, it's very vicious, a lot of blood, a lot of guts, a lot of chainsaw action, you know, compared to like the original, which is quite limited and linear and doesn't have too much blood. This one's kind of very like balls to the wall, like splatter and just guts and, you know, intestines and body parts going everywhere. But I thought it was okay, kind of middle of the road, but it's definitely not one of my favourites in the franchise. But I do prefer it to some of those other ones I've just been over, some of those older sequels. Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Okay, so we're on to number 4. Now I have a lovely release of this from Vinegar Syndrome. A couple of years ago, Vinegar Syndrome released an absolute beautiful release of this film, which comes in at number 4, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Excellent film, directed by the original director of the OG, Tobe Hooper. But what he decided to do 10 years or so later, when this film was released, he decided to go in a different direction, and he went in the comedic route. And this is basically, it's got a lot of violence. It's more violent than the first film. It's got more guts and gore, but it has a comedic tone, and it's got Bill Moseley playing the character Chop Top, who's fantastic. He's really quirky and weird, and he's strange, and he's got, you know, he's got a metal plate exposed that's in his head, which he scratches with a wire. So he's always scratching his metal plate that's in his head. It's got some good violence. Yeah, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, really fun. It's just these other 3 I think are a little bit like better for me. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, love it. Dennis Hopper plays, you remember Sally from the first film? Dennis Hopper plays her uncle, who's mad about Franklin being killed, and he's, you know, he's on a rampage to get the Sawyers. They've got an elaborate hideout, like an amusement park with an underground hideout. It's an amusement park that's not open anymore. An abandoned amusement park, and it's got like a really cool underground hideout, and it's got you've got Chop Top, you've got Leatherface, and you've got Drayton Sawyer's back in it, the same actor from the first film. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, brilliant film, very gory, very comedic, very crazy. A lot of crazy stuff in that one. Absolutely fantastic. Coming in at number 3 from 2006, one I really like. Wasn't too high on it when it was first released, but it's grew on me, that's for sure. Just trying to get a little bit of a shot of my Leatherface t-shirt, you can see in there. Kiss the Cook, it says. It's a good t-shirt, that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Now, this is a prequel to the remake. Now, we've got the 2003 remake, which I haven't unveiled in this franchise ranking yet. But this is the, the beginning. Violent, nasty, grisly, completely different to the other films. It's a prequel story, and also with this with the remake from 2003 and this prequel, they got rid of they created a different sort of Chainsaw Massacre universe. So they got rid of the Sawyer family name and they put in the Hewitts. So he's not Bubba Sawyer, he's Thomas Hewitt, so they're the Hewitts. In this film also you have Ali Ermey playing a fantastic role as Sheriff Hoyt, who isn't really the sheriff. It shows what happens when these guys lose their job in a slaughterhouse. They go crazy and Sheriff Hoyt kills the actual sheriff of the small rural town, and he takes over and puts a hat on and the uniform and basically announces himself as the sheriff. So basically steals that role and just starts going around like he's the sheriff. Yeah, it's got crazy action, crazy gore, violence, good storyline. Yeah, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Very grisly film. And for me, coming in at number 2, don't know if a lot of people will like this, I like it. Coming in at number 2, the 2003 remake, which is the film that came out before the one I've just shown you, The Beginning. So The Beginning was a prequel to this one. Again, it uses the Hewitt name. No Sawyers, they're the Hewitts in this. It tells the story of the original, so it's a remake of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with different names and some different elements. And this is how you do a remake. You don't just do a carbon copy shot for shot of the original. You take the original material and you enhance it perhaps and elaborate more. And that's what they did with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake. They basically took the whole idea of the first film, the original, but like elaborated more. It's not as good a film by all means, but it's great and it's very dark. It's very shiny as well. It's a bit of a glossy one. With it being what's the studio? Platinum Dunes. It's that studio that did a lot of horror remakes, and I think they failed at a lot of them. But this is one where they had some good success. Like Chainsaw Massacre 2003's got a great aesthetic. It's really like dark and kind of like shiny though. It's got a very what's the word? I don't really know what I'm trying to. It's kind of weird. It's very glossy. It looks very well made and very like, you can tell it's got a budget, which not having a budget is kind of the beauty of the original. But this is a nice like big budget Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. It tells the story of the original basically, but instead of Sally you've got Erin, I think her name is. Yeah. She's one of the characters, and all the characters have different names, basically. You've got Sheriff Hoyt, he turns up. Some great scenes with Sheriff Hoyt, where he's basically, Ali Ermey's going military style on these young people outside the camper van, like terrorising them and putting his gun in people's mouths and things like that. They replaced the hitchhiker with a suicidal woman who basically blows her brains out in the back of the camper van. That's a catalyst to get into the Hewitts, to getting the Hewitts involved, a catalyst from Sheriff Hoyt being called. He turns up, he's really sinister. Ali Ermey plays a dastardly villain in this film. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. It's a bit more like, it's completely different to the OG, but they do use that they use like a skeleton of the story. So it is basically the same narrative, but it's switched up, new characters, new scenes, new names, new places, a bigger farmhouse. Yeah, it's great remake. So no surprise what number 1's going to be. And I do have a couple of editions of it. So coming in at number 1 is one of my favourite horror films, and that's the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I got the lovely Second Sight 4K, and I got the old DVD, as you can see there, which is cool as well. It comes with a really cool booklet. But yeah, the OG is just fantastic. I've already gone over it to some extent in this video, as you've probably heard. I love how it's linear, it's raw, it's lower budget. It's like Tobe Hooper's first film, is it right? It might not be, he might have done like short films, but I'm sure it's his first feature film, 1974, set in 1973. It's presented as true events, like basically it has that whole like reading at the beginning where it's talking about what will be known as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's set in sunny Texas in the backwoods in an isolated rural location. There's some great scenes like at the cemetery that build towards all the action. You've got the hitchhiker Nubbins, who's just crazy, who turns up and cuts his hand in the van. That's sort of a catalyst to getting towards what's going to go down later on. You've got Drayton Sawyer running the petrol station, the gas station and store. Very in the middle of nowhere. These guys are really isolated, all the victims in this. It's got some fantastic scenes where like Leatherface first shows up and basically clubbers one of the guys in the back of the head with an hammer, and then he's vibrating and having a spasm. So the guy gets hit in the back of the head with a hammer, has a spasm. Leatherface drags him into the back, closes the metal door, and then you get the sound effect of boom. And it's just fantastic. I love this film. It's really linear as well. It's about 70 or so minutes. It's got a great finale. Iconic scene with Leatherface like spinning around at the end, looking all menacing with the chainsaw because he's angry because Sally's gotten away. So he's spinning around with the chainsaw flying around in his hands, you know, in the air. Fantastic film. Some great films set in the dark as well. I love the daytime aesthetic of this because it captures that sort of hot, like rural country like sort of environment, but also at night time when Sally is pushing Franklin through the woods when they're looking for the rest of the group, and Leatherface turns up between all those branches. It's quite scary, that. Yeah, so my favourite is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just the best one in the franchise. Fantastic film. That's my ranking of the franchise anyway, so I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, I will say Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original OG is one of my favourite films, and the 2003 remake is one of my favourite remakes for sure. But it's not one of my favourite, although being one of my favourite films, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974, not one of my favourite franchises at all. It's got a few stinkers in there, and I'm not too keen on it as a franchise, but it does have some standouts, which I rank, you know, the higher ones that I ranked in this video are standouts and really good films. I do prefer like Nightmare on Elm Street as a franchise. I do prefer Friday the 13th as a franchise. I do prefer perhaps even Evil Dead as a franchise. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like the best horror film to me like ever made. It's just so raw and like, yeah, it's just fantastic. It's just aesthetically great. I love the fact it's lower budget. I love the story behind it because there's the shocking truth, which is on a lot of the Blu-rays and 4Ks, that documentary. The Shocking Truth tells you a little bit about the film and its release and production. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, thanks for watching my ranking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I'm going to be doing a few franchise ranking videos because I've not done many before, so I thought now would be a good time to get some up on the channel. And you never know, I may redo them in the future. So thanks for watching, and yeah, have a good one, and bye.